Hello, hello, hello everyone! Sodor Railway Studios here, and today I'm going to be doing another movie review. And today it's the turn of DreamWorks films taking the turn this time, and we're going to be reviewing what is, in my opinion, one of their more overhated films, let's say. And that is Shark Tale, released in 2004. But before we start, I want to give a shout out to Kitty Slypaws because they're the one that suggested that I do this one because I did a poll earlier on asking which one you'd like to see me review, and Shark Tale got quite a few votes, so I thought I'd review that one. So basically, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I actually like this film. I actually really like this film, and that's it might sound a bit weird because a lot of people really don't like this film, mainly because of Oscar, the main protagonist of the film. And I will admit, I I personally don't think he's as bad of a character as people say he is, because I mean, yes, on the one hand, he can be obnoxious, he can be selfish, and he is very much a gimmicky character. Like I mean, it's just Will Smith as a fish. I get that, but at the same time, I feel like people kind of forget about the context behind his character and why he acts the way he does. Because you've got to remember that when he was a kid, he was bullied for coming from a working class family. Um, and so there was all that shame from day one, basically. And all of his role models since his dad passed away, at least it's implied that his dad passed away. But and after that, all of his role models are criminals, are rich criminals. Um, so in a way, you can kind of understand why Oscar acts the way he does and why he's so obsessed with becoming rich. So he feels like he has to lie in order to get to the top. This is basically. So he feels like he has to do all these things if he wants to get where if he wants to get where he wants to go. And I like that about him because, like, while I wouldn't say that he's likable, while I wouldn't say he's likable, I do think he's well written. Because that's the thing about jerk characters. You don't always have to make jerk characters likable. I feel like I think you have to make them compelling. And I feel like Oscar's a good example of a compelling jerk protagonist, basically. And I feel like Will Smith does the best he can with the material, and he does a really good job as Oscar. Um, Talking of that, I know a lot of people also really don't like the character designs in this film because they think they look either ugly or uncanny or unsettling. I think all those are words that have probably been used to describe the character designs in this film. But honestly, I don't really think the designs are that bad because, like, I could tell what they were going for. They were going for like the whole magazine thing with celebrities. So I feel like if you were to ask someone, hey, take this celebrity and turn them into a fish, this is what you get, basically. Because I actually kind of like how most of the characters were actually modeled after the people who did their voices. Like I can really see like the Will Smith look in Oscar, for example. Um, Speaking of that, I should say I also really like Oscar's dynamic with Lenny in this film as well. Like I will say, I do think Lenny is a slightly best. I do think Lenny is a better character than Oscar because first of all, he's just absolutely adorable. Um, and also I think Jack Black does a really good job voicing him as well. Like I imagine sometimes you might not even be able to tell that that's Jack Black, which so I'm glad he went that route. He still did a really good job, and I love his chemistry with Will Smith. Um, because I also think that Lenny manages to bring out some of Oscar's more positive traits, because we see that he does care about others even if he doesn't always show it. So he's and I like how willing he is to fix things between Lenny and his dad, because and that's the thing I like about also. I also think that Don Lino, who Robert De Niro plays, I think Don Lino is a pretty good villain as well. Well, I guess you could argue he's not even a villain. I mean, he's an antagonist, sure, but he's not really that evil. He just becomes a bit he just becomes really upset when Oscar claims to have killed both of his sons. Because obviously Frankie got killed by an anchor, so and which Oscar took credit for. So you can understand why Don Lino would get angry about that, considering from his perspective, both of his sons have died, and Oscar's the culprit behind that because he's the one that's claiming to be the Shark Slayer. And so you can understand his anger, even though obviously he didn't exactly treat Lenny the best earlier on in the film. You see that he does care about him, which is something I like about him. And also I do like Oscar's relationship with Angie as well. Like, I know a lot of people have called their relationship toxic, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like I kind of see where they're coming from, because I mean, Oscar does act really selfish for most of this film, but he does learn his lesson by the end, and he apologizes to Angie, and um now I will admit might seem a little unrealistic how he gets forgiven so easily, but I guess Angie's just that sweet of a person, um or fish in this case. And I thought that Renee Zellweger was perfect for the voice of Angie. Like, she did a really good job, especially when in the moment where Oscar and Angie had their argument, and which led to Oscar realizing how selfish he'd been. And then I like how their relationship also kind of gets tested when Oscar meets Lola as well. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, because I don't really blame him. Lola does look quite attractive, to say the least. But what I do like about Lola is the fact that there are probably women like her that do exist in the real world, like people that only show an interest in people because of money. Because obviously in the film she's described as being a gold digger. So um, So yeah, I'd argue that Oscar's relationship with Lola's more toxic than Angie, but I feel like that's kind of the whole point, really. To be honest, like, to show how toxic the relationship actually is, considering Lola was only interested in Oscar when he became quote unquote rich. Um, and then also there's Ernie and Bernie, the two jellyfish that are Mr. Sykes's assistants, and they are just hilarious. Like, I like the fact that they were given Jamaican accents as well. Like, that kind of reminds me of Sebastian from The Little Mermaid in a way. I thought that Ziggy Marley and Dougie Doug did a really good job as both characters, and Martin Scorsese was really good as Mr. Sykes. Yeah, because I feel like Sykes was a pretty good mentor to Oscar in a way, even though he was constantly frustrated by Oscar's shenanigans. Um, and also, even though it's not quite that prominent, I do also quite like Hans Zimmer's score for the film, because even though it's not as prominent as the constant pop songs that play throughout the film, um, I do think that Hans Zimmer did do a pretty good job with the score for this film. Like, I'm not really surprised that he's done the music for lots of other DreamWorks films, because I'm looking back, I'm trying to think of all the other DreamWorks films he did. He did The Prince of Egypt, he did The Road to El Dorado, he did the Madagascar films, uh, he did the Kung Fu Panda films as well. I think he did Megamind as well. So yeah, Hans Zimmer's done a lot of DreamWorks films. He's done the music for a lot of DreamWorks films. I can't say I blame them though. But I do think he did a really good job with the music in Shark Tale. I especially love the music that he did for when Oscar's being chased down by Don Lino. So overall, I personally think that Shark Tale gets way too much hate. Like I can understand why some people don't like it, but personally, I'm not one of those people because I know there are even some people that call this one the worst DreamWorks film, and I personally I can't see why people would think that because I've seen a lot worse films than this one. And I've seen a lot of characters get away with much worse things Oscars hated than what Oscars hated for. Um, but yeah, I do think this film had a decent story. It was well voice acted and good animation for its time. I still think it maybe doesn't quite hold up today, but I still think it was good for its time, and I do see what they were going for in terms of the character designs. Because I do at least like how expressive each character was. Especially ones like Oscar and Lenny. Um, so yeah, if even if you don't like this film, that's fine. I respect your opinion, but remember to respect mine back, of course. Because I the last thing I want is to cause an argument in the comment section. Um, so now don't get me wrong, this film isn't perfect. It does have its flaws, but I I'd say it's a lot more it's not as unbearable as people claim it to be. That's my personal thoughts on it. I don't think it's as unbearable as people claim it to be. Like it's certainly not the worst DreamWorks film, especially when you think of films like Shrek the Third and the Boss Baby. Like I really don't like those films. And also the first Trolls film as well. Like I actually think the first Trolls film is probably my least favorite DreamWorks film. Like I really don't like the first Trolls film. The second and third films were all right though, but I really don't like the first one. But that's just my opinion, of course. Um, so yeah, in conclusion, Shark Tale, in my opinion, gets way too much hate. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. I'd say. Like it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but I do think it's nowhere near as bad as people claim it to be, in my opinion, anyway. So let me know what your thoughts on this film are. Um, and thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next review.